Welcome to the Chasing Rings podcast. All right, good evening. Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Chasing Rings podcast, the show where we break down the pursuit, the pressure, and everything that comes with chasing that championship rings and all of the different sports that we all follow and love so much. We're going to hop right into it. I'm going to bring my participants into the podcast. First, we have my friend, Big Dude 76. Welcome to the Chasing Rings podcast, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And I got my other brother, G. Welcome to the Chasing Rings podcast, sir. I appreciate you guys joining me on this inaugural edition.
Thanks for having me
here, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, so as y'all know, it's football season through and through, and right now we're going to focus on this first episode. We'll focus on the college football playoffs. So much to talk about with college football, period, especially college football. The rankings are set, brackets are set. Championships can be very unforgiving. We're going to jump in and we're going to talk about the bracket, talk about the snubs. We're going to kind of analyze each game and kind of get into our picks, which we've known those of us in here, we've known each other for a while and we love to talk ish about sports. So I'm looking forward to this. This should be real fun. So we're going to hop right into this. Where am I? All right. So they got the brackets, the committee. We could call them another word that rhymes with the committee. Did the committee get it right, fellas?
Well, G, why don't you start, man?
Yeah, well, I call it the Shamity, and I've been calling it that.
There you go.
For a long time. Did they get it right? I guess for me, there are two answers. One, if they're following their stated rules, then they got it right. But if it's about competition, which in my world, that's what it's about, it's flat out wrong.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Steph?
Any more detail later as we go through.
Absolutely, right. Absolutely.
And I think, as G just mentioned, 5 automatic bids, from the highest rating conference champs. Okay, we match up with that, but the part about the next 7 spots that are for the next highest teams, it's about as good as it can be. And I don't want to flip over into anything else, but I think there's a number of factors when we start to consider who's next, that nobody can really tell us what the eye test is about. No one can really tell us, how do you look at those other conferences? We opened it up for Boise State, that other 5, group 5 conference. We opened it up for a certain reason, but does that match up when you talk about competition and the best teams to be able to play for the chip? Right. I think because of the way it's set up, it's very hard for them to get it right. They have some work to do. So they came close, I'll say.
Well, it's kind of like March Madness to me. You're never going to satisfy everyone, right? But I think, G, you started it off with an important point. The way it's structured, how they've defined their processes and their qualifications, they perhaps, and I'll leave that briefly, perhaps got it right. I think one of the biggest issues I have with it is these rankings that we went with a few weeks ago, right? We have the CFP rankings. And then days before you actually select the final teams, you have teams that were ranked in that poll not being selected. And I am not going to defend Notre Dame. Everyone on here knows how I feel about Notre Dame. So please, I'm not defending Notre Dame. But I guess my big thing, playing devil's advocate, how could Notre Dame be ranked in that CFP top 12 and then not be in the 12? And, one of the things that they kept pushing on us is if you don't play, you can't move up, but you also weren't going to be penalized, right?
Right.
So I'll leave that there, and then anybody can jump in.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I
I'd
guess
like
we get. Go
good.
ahead, Phil.
Okay. Well, again, and I think I'll pick up where you all were saying. It's like Notre Dame, we know what the advantages are and what they've done in almost every other sport. They're part of the ACC. And in football, we understand what the advantage is financially and everything, their own football network and a number of other things where they can play their own national schedule. So all those things are great and they're advantageous, but you just simply can't have it all. And you know what? One year you might be told no. To me, that's what it comes down to. That, like you said, Guru, I have concerns too about all these shows that they have. They have all these shows, these pre-shows. I don't know how big now. You wonder what ESPN has to do with it. Does it have to come out so ESPN and TNT and those other stations can do well? But now, what does Notre Dame tell its alumni? You got Dick Vitale and you got Aaron Taylor and Brady Quinn, and they're all saying that there's no way they can be left out. But there is going to be a year where you are simply told no. But until things start to get on the same page, and I know one of the talking points that we are going to call to, that's probably a separate talking point, but maybe we can get it started, is the conference championship and what does it mean? Because if it means a whole lot, then that's tough for Notre Dame. Notre Dame, as an institution, their AD and all these other folks, they're very upset about what's happened. But Notre Dame has to understand, with everything that is fortunate for them, are also difficult choices for any committee, as long as the conference championships are counted. If we're talking about automatic bids from a conference championship game, Notre Dame will have a couple of broken toes going into that playoff possibility.
Before you jump in, G, I'm gonna make one comment about that conference argument that Notre Dame makes. Notre Dame's known for years now where the conference champions factored into these selections, because this has not been the first time that's been an issue for them as a football program. So I'll leave that there. G, please go ahead.
Yeah, I know we're going to get back to Notre Dame, so I won't say what I'm thinking right now. But just in terms of the Shamiti getting it correct, there are a couple of pieces that I have to go back to, objectively. They really play with Notre Dame emotions, having them ranked ahead of Miami for several weeks when they'd already said that head-to-head mattered.
Yep.
Okay. So really, they had to perform on the field after they lost. When they lost that game to Miami, it was really their fault, if you really want to boil it down to. But the Shamiti did play with their emotions. But in terms of, if I step back and look at the selection process, it's really not about the best. This is honestly about money. And if you really think about how we went from, the AP pretty much choosing who a national champion is to where we are now, it's been very incremental for a reason. It's because of that guaranteed money, and those who are making that money up, it makes sense. I don't begrudge anyone making their money, but I also believe it's a bit of short-sightedness there when you start adding in the question of merit. So I think that the Shamiti, where this is going to go, and I'd be surprised if it goes until the end of his current contract. I do believe that we're going to move away from the committee and their eye test, because everyone has different levels of vision. And I do believe at some point we're going to go back to something like the BCS was probably where we're going to go to. And then we have to do the merit. And Steph, you brought up something that I thought was really, really important. I understand why they did the top 5 conference champions. Year in and year out, usually one of the conference champions in the G5 made into the top 24. and so, or at least in the top 25. And so I get that. But, at some point we have to stop doing the participation trophy when it comes to this. If
Mm-hmm.
we really have, if this is about the best 12, then let it be about the best 12. All right. So I have more, but I'll stop right now.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the money piece of this. Um, and that ties into the use of these bowl games because I mean this bowl system has long been broken. Interest in the bowls has waned more and more each year. I know we shared a text earlier about the ridiculous sponsorship associated with these bowl games now to the point that the games do not even sound like they're real games.
Yeah.
The Snoop Dogg and Dre Gin and Juice Bowl.
Right.
The
Love
Fat
Snoop and
Parts
Dre.
Bowl.
Love
Uh,
Snoop and Dre, but the Gin and Juice Bowl, as you would say, big dude is a little heavy.
right.
But you make a really good point, G. The top 12 teams, and you mentioned something about the eye test. Obviously, I'm a Bama fan. Keep it clean today, G. Please be nice. But what I've seen on the field, if we talk about the eye test for a minute, Alabama certainly has not looked good for the last few weeks. Okay. The
Hmm.
eye test is a very subjective variable to use in a process like this. So I'm not sure where that would come into play. If you're sitting in the room like, well, I don't like the way they looked. Well, we can
Hmm.
pick a sport. And I've seen a team in a 7-game series that looked like trash and end up winning a series in basketball. We've
Right.
seen the number one seeds in March Madness not look that great when their games, advance through the tournament.
No
The eye
doubt.
test is way too subjective. And I know if you're just kind of shooting the ish with your boys and you're talking about, oh, y'all look like trash, blah, blah, blah. A win is a win at the end of the day, right? We all say that
Mhm.
we'll take it if it's 3-0 or 75-3. We're going to take the win.
Right. Right. But you know
Very
what I think about the eye test is kind of, and you tell me what y'all think about this. If you get enough people with a vote, because how many like in the coaches poll and the AP poll, do you know how many people are actually have votes?
I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
Isn't it
used to
several
know.
hundred or something like that?
yeah.
It's a
So
pretty
that's
big
about right.
amount.
So I'm wondering if it's plausible, and it would be interesting sports journalism research, is that how often do they get it right? So how often does the coaches poll and the AP poll get it right? Because think about survey research. A lot of times survey research, I mean, we're all doctors here. A lot of survey research, is used to extrapolate. And
Yeah,
then there are statistical ways to determine whether or not is how valid the conclusion is, or even how reliable the questions are. So I do wonder then if you have a lot of eyes who really follow these games speaking, does that increase the accuracy of the eye test versus 12 people? I mean, how many people's on this
It,
committee? 20 people, I think.
I think
Is
it's
it
third. Is it 13?
13?
it's that's an interesting point. But if you remember back in the day
I'm
when
going to look it up while you're
had the
talking.
straight up rankings, there used to be a lot of discussion about bias based on regions, right?
Hmm.
Everybody, those votes would kind of go down regionally. So let's say, for example, let's say if Alabama was farther down in the poll this year and Georgia was the highest ranking SEC team, all of those other SEC votes would tend to go for Georgia to make sure that the SEC was represented at the top of that poll. That's how those votes used to kind of play out back in the day, 80s, probably early 90s. Um, I'm not sure if that same bias still exists, but
Hmm.
I would definitely err on the side that these polls are in no way accurate. Because even if you look at, I don't know how much you guys looked at the strength of schedules and the strength of records. I mean, some of these teams have no business. If you're going by SOS and SOR, which they said were variables that they use to select these teams as part of the formula. I mean, you have who's this here? Uh, is it James Madison? James Madison's strength of schedule is
James Madison.
123.
Yeah, I
You
was
know,
looking at that too.
Tulane is 77. I mean, even Texas Tech, who I think pretty highly of, strength of schedule is 54.
Wow.
So you're not playing anybody.
Right.
And that's going to show itself in these games. They're going under this premise that we're going to get the same Cinderella situation that we get in March Madness, and football is a diametrically opposite sport when it comes to level of competition.
But
right?
You know what? Interestingly enough, if you had 2014 playoff, you actually might get that Cinderella.
How would you classify a Cinderella though? Because would
Well,
Cinderella be Ole Miss our Cinderella, or is Tulane you're going to get a Tulane type Cinderella? Because I don't think that any of those group of 5 teams would make it out of a 20. If you advance this and expanded it, I do not think a Power 5 or a group of 5 team will ever win it. I apologize, all of the group of 5 schools in advance.
you know, I have a note here that's saying that this is not when App State beat Michigan. It was kind of like a rising App State in our division, but it was a decline in Michigan. It was a rising App State, but it was a Texas A&M that was was on the ropes at that point. And so that wouldn't be that situation. So I don't know.
A good example, by the way. That's a really good example. But I'll challenge you on that. App State wins that game, but do they run the table?
Well, no, I think my point is that when Michigan really wasn't on a rise when App beat them, Texas A&M wasn't either when we beat them. But if you do a 2014 playoff, or even we have this 12-team playoff, that's a whole different beast, because you actually have teams who are riding, who are, they may not be, all of them may not be playing well, but I'm sorry. If JMU or Tulane beat Alabama, I think Bama would dog walk them. I truly do.
One of these teams could certainly catch lightning in a bottle. Don't get me wrong. But now you're talking about catching it, 3 weekends in a row, 4 weekends in a row?
Well, honestly, bro, I'm thinking just the first round, somebody not expected to win could win.
That can happen. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, because here's the flip side. I mean, I took in a Tulane game. I've taken in James Madison games. And I'm sorry, some of those who are like in 20, 21, 22, those can actually be some pretty decent games.
Their opponents better come to play. It's not, you can't come play a bad game against them. I will say that. You're going to have to play.
Yeah, like the year we lost to Ohio. People, they used to always say somebody, and they no longer exist, I believe, right? The Mid-American Conference. That's what they always used to say, that you guys keep fooling around, and one of those Mid-American Conference teams is going to ruin your season. So we were like, man, maybe. You know what? Then we ended up losing at the year after the national championship. My first year at Penn State, we lost to Cincinnati at home, 14-3. So they have the athletes, they have other things. But my thing is, though, I think I know Gerald, to Gerald's point about expanding, and at a 24 team, and I think even at a 16 team. And Walter, you were talking about how people can have the momentum about who really needs to go in there. I would say, really, I think we really need to start to take a look at the last couple of teams being in part of the last 4 teams being a part of two play-in games, or however it comes out mathematically. I think the play-in games give you a little bit more beef.
Diego Pavia was on First Take this morning. They were talking to him, obviously, about going to being in New York for the Heisman and his thoughts on that, and his NFL stock and all of that. But they asked him, what does he think could be done differently? And that's one of the things that he said, a play-in game, which I had not really thought of. Conversations that we've all had in the past. I always want to expand tournaments. I've always wanted that.
Yeah, me too.
Football. D3, D2, and FCS have done it great. And there's a game tonight. Those games are super interesting for teams to play their way through. So I'm glad that we have something. I feel like we wanted something, we got it, and we're still crying. But it's just not I feel like with the FBS, it's just always something imperfectly, seemingly biased about it. Like you don't hear these same beefs in the lower levels. I mean, you had a couple of times where some schools thought that they should have gotten in, but for the most part, you don't hear the same complaints at those levels. And we'd probably always be complaining at the FBS level, but I think we'll be a little bit more comfortable if there was a little bit of a larger field, because I'll tell you what, who would want to play Vanderbilt right now? I certainly would not want to play them.
Don't want none of Vanderbilt.
And Texas got better. You know, Arch Manning got a little bit better at the end of the year. Do you want to play them?
And I would say with one less loss, I would have thought Texas might be able to bump Miami, if you ask me.
I mean, let's talk about wins and losses for a minute before I forget this. Do you guys think that one of the problems with Bama was the third loss? And I say this because we all came up in a time where if you lost one game, your season was done.
Right.
We slowly have advanced now to, maybe 2. But now Bama has that third loss. Do you think that's part of the angst with Bama being in, other than G's obvious hate for them? But being objective, do you think having that third loss, because now that's the new line of demarcation, right? Oh, we let a 3-loss team in, so the 3-loss team be in. Do you guys think that played a factor?
You look like you're ready to say something. You go ahead.
I am. You know, I go back and forth on this one because I do believe who you lost. There's a part of me believes who you lost to and when matters. But, you know, if I just totally step back and if I say, well, it's about the best team and how they played, no, Alabama shouldn't be in there. I do believe Notre Dame should be in there. So I want people to understand this is not Alabama hate, because even though I hate Alabama, but I'm honest with you, when they do well, I'm honest about that. They just didn't do well enough in my world to warrant it. If anything, they should have bounced out and Notre Dame should be in.
Okay, I am asking this subjectively.
Right. See,
why is Alabama punished for the championship game?
Right. See, but this is what I'm saying, and I think
one of the things they were.
Well, early loss to Florida State. There's nothing I can say about that based on how Florida State ended
that was just a bad game.
But the loss to Oklahoma was a very ugly game, by the way. But Oklahoma's a legitimate team, right? Other than that, we lost to Georgia, Oklahoma, terrible loss to Florida State.
But here's the problem, though, Walt.
We played a hell of a schedule.
Here's the problem, Guru, for real. I mean, it's the loss to, especially the second half, if there is an eye test, was about as bad as losses Alabama's had in years. I mean, it was. Believe me, I saw they had minus 3 yards rushing in the second half.
I didn't even know that until after the game. I didn't even know that until after the game, man. That was embarrassing.
I've never heard of an SEC team getting shut down like that. And I realized that you have those other people, and you still have like the kid from Millville, the Latier Brooks kid and all that. You have all the different people that are coming along, but that's going to be the thing about them having a chance against OU. And they have the best left tackle in the SEC. You know, at number 74, I forget his name. He won some kind of blocking award, but he's also very good. But when you have a second half as bad as that was, that's that. And see, and I say with Notre Dame, I still look at those first 2 losses, G. You know, they started off 0-2. Like you said, 2 losses isn't a bad thing. To me, it's different. You start off 0-2, you are really in the back seat if you start.
Like exactly. How do you even work your way back up if you're 0-2? How do you work your back? How do you even get that high in the rankings at 0-2?
Now understand. I didn't say this, but understand. I'm just basing it on how the Shemity ranked folk. So it's not like I truly believe on the playing field should Notre Dame be in there. I'd say no. I say, but if you're going to rank them the way they have been ranking them, then I'd say yes. But Alabama,
because they're one of the top 7 teams, is that what you mean? Because of those 7 teams that are left, they're one of the best 7. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because what were they? Were they 9 or 10 in the last poll before?
10.
Let me look. Oh, you have it up.
I would have thought that they would have been in.
Hold on.
And
11?
as a Tide fan, I would not have voted Bama in.
Yeah.
They finished 11.
Okay, I was off by 1.
Now,
They
see,
finished 11.
for me, strength of schedule, and we've had this debate because I always feel that the Big Ten plays a weak ass schedule. Sorry, no disrespect to y'all, but strength of schedule to me has always been pretty important. And I feel before the SEC championship game, I felt that Bama's strength of schedule, who they had beat, I mean, they had a month of all ranked teams going to Georgia and beating Georgia in Athens. But that miserable, I felt like for them to get in, that had to be a close game in the SEC championship.
Right.
And so I would have had no problem with them being left out. And quite honestly, I'd rather not see Ty Simpson again. But here we go.
But the stuff that you read says that Ty Simpson actually had a good year. That's why I couldn't figure out, because I was like,
he did. He didn't have a good. I couldn't believe he was a Heisman candidate.
Right. Well, I think one of the things you talked about is the strength of the SEC. This is what I think, one of the things in our pre-topic things that we brought up. I think all this is folding together about where the politics are coming from the conference. And I think one of the things about the SEC is they weren't going to let, even though they had a bad game against Georgia, SEC was not going to let Bama go out like that. That's how much strength I think they have. That's why these conferences, and we start to take a look at not just for the conference championship games, but our conference is going to be a big part of the NCAA, or is it going to be like the AFC and NFC? Because we have the Big Ten and we have the SEC, and basically, other than Notre Dame, there's nobody else. And then all of a sudden, the Pac-12 is gone, and then you got the Big 12 who's in there somewhere. But
yeah, I love the tradition. I love the tradition of the conference championship games, like that Indiana-Ohio State game. That's football. That's a football game. That's how you play football. That's what you want to see, right? You don't want to blink. You got to hurry back from the bathroom for that bad boy, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Should the conference game help or hurt?
I don't think it's definitive one way or another. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that if Alabama had not lost 2 games already,
but here's the problem.
Their championship wouldn't have mattered.
See, and G, here's the problem with what you were saying. I mean, I think what you're saying is on point about how the committee does stuff, but the committee is subjected to all these quirky tiebreakers from different conferences. Prime example is the ACC.
Tiebreaker, for example.
You got a 5 loss. There's no way a 5-loss team should be in any championship game.
Near.
And then had an argument for why they should be in as the rep for the conference.
Yeah, I was like, come on, Diaz. Now go get your other job. You got your conference championship now. Maybe he'll apply for the Michigan job. Who knows now? That's the way I see it. But you can't get into playoffs.
I just don't like. I guess my thing with the conference championship games, if I have to definitively take a side, is that why not set your field before those games, right? And if something happens like what happened in the SEC championship game, then Bama, you're punished for that lackadaisical performance. Because I think the tradition of college football, those conference championships are important to these conferences. Like you ask Georgia, you ask Ohio State, Indiana, they wanted to win that game bad. Ohio State and Indiana were fortunate because they knew that loss wasn't going to hurt them. They were both undefeated. It was now I want this Big Ten chip.
Right.
To me, Alabama's got to play with a better sense of urgency and more pride than how they played, because I know that it means just as much for them to win that SEC chip as well. And game was over from the second, third series, quite honestly.
I mean, they just ran into Georgia, and Georgia was just a buzzsaw. I mean, it was Alabama would have to, and we knew this going in, Bama would have to play almost a perfect game to beat Georgia. At least that's how
and you had beaten them once when you probably shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
So, I knew how that was going to go. I knew how that was going to be. I just didn't think it would be that bad.
Alabama, unfortunately, has played their best football, and I think that's what we learned.
Which is what?
Right. Well,
Which is what?
they were
I mean,
able
what game?
to find ways to
What
win. That was the
game?
thing. They
Somebody
were able to
tell me
stay
what
in
game did
games.
Alabama look ooh wee? What game?
Georgia.
For a half? If there was 2 more
Yeah,
minutes left, Alabama would have lost.
maybe. But and the thing is, and they're still kind of young, to be honest with you. I'm not like I said. And we played against Bama, so it's not like Bama's my favorite team either, because they aren't. But
Look, man,
I have to give them their respect. You know,
y'all
they
know.
are they're recruiting up here. This is what I'm saying. They're still very young. I'm telling you, once Latair Brooks gets out and he's able to be part of what's going on, the quarterback thing is going to be important, but you'll be in charge of what's going on with the wideouts in the SEC probably next year. Maybe not this year.
That sounds nice in theory, Steph. As a Bama fan, that sounds really nice in theory. But the reality of this is, and I had this conversation with my wife earlier, damn Georgia fan. Everybody wanted to go to Bama, Ohio State, Texas. Everybody don't want to go to Bama no more, bro.
I think that's changing though. I really think that's going to change. Because,
I mean, they have a good recruiting class coming in, but are they going to keep everybody?
Yeah.
I think they're going to change. How did they do last year?
Say it again.
How did that Bama do last year?
Damn, it was. We didn't make the playoffs. We didn't make the
My point is that whatever they're doing at Bama, when the head coaching changed, yes, there was a change in the culture. There was a change in the environment with the new head coach, right? But something is happening that the fact that they are making steps back. Don't get me wrong. I hate Alabama. I don't like anything about that dang on institution. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
You know I'm used to it, G. You see my face didn't even change. I'm used to this from you, man.
But I'll just two things that's not the hog airtime. Should they be in with 3 losses? No. I don't think we should be rewarding any team with 3 losses.
I agree with you.
But I am happy and confident though, because you don't ever, in my world, you don't ever want to have a football schedule of football games, just the whole thing, without a high-powered Alabama in the mix. I mean, in my world, maybe I'm just sentimental because Alabama has always been there, it seems. I don't like it when a team is just totally falling off. And so I'm kind of happy that they're making those strides. Steph is right. They're young as a group together. So I think next year they're going to probably, do some real damage. Just was not their year, and the Shemity gave it to them.
You know why I'm going to tell you why they're not going to do damage next year? And any Bama fan that watches this is going to hate me as a Bama fan, because Ty Simpson is coming back probably. And as long as he's the quarterback, nada.
Hey,
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am wrong.
Unless his coach, unless your coach, and this just crosses over a few things, but timely because of the Sharon Moore thing. Unless your coach goes to Michigan, which people are talking about,
going to Michigan.
He takes Simpson with him.
I mean, I wouldn't care either way, to be quite honest with you. The only thing that would bother me about it is we have to reset again. Right. I don't think he's a Bama guy personally. I think
because I don't think he's a good
better
fit
for him.
I really don't think he's a good fit for Bama.
But it definitely will set back the program for sure.
So I wanted to
it's already been
something when y'all get a moment.
What's that, G?
I said I wanted to circle back to something just when you finish your thought. So I asked about the numbers. So there was like 12 people making a decision for the CFP. But I don't think that's a large sample size. And
it is.
And there were 12. There were 62 for like the AP poll, which is, that's better. So I think if you're gonna use the eye test, I'd rather use poll and create like a poll like they do in politics, but then supplement that with the analytics that we're talking about. Because even if you look at the strength of schedule, and I'm looking at ESPN, so I don't know how other organizations may actually calculate their strength of schedule. I mean, Wisconsin had the top strength of schedule.
See, that's crazy.
For strength of record, IU had the top.
Yeah.
So I think so. Even with the analytics, I think you have to figure out since one of the earlier questions was like about the process and maybe and we start talking about where it might go, so that you're not having all these arguments. I think that there is room for both the eye test if it has enough data points, basically enough people analyzing those games who are actually knowledgeable people, as well as the analytics and determine which analytics tend to predict the closest. None will be perfect, but which ones predict the closest. Then after that, the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Any closing comments about the committee getting it right before we jump into the group of five? A little bit of a group of five discussion here.
I think they did as good as they could have done. The thing about it is, on all sides, especially with Notre Dame, since we're talking about it, that there's no way I think a committee should ever look at a team that lost, or at least they should be in the backseat with a team that's lost 2 consecutive games in the beginning. And any brand, regardless of whether it's Alabama or Notre Dame or anyone else, should not be the final predictor of who gets snubbed and who gets in. And the question is on those committees, where does that, like the eye test, how does that, to me, I'm not confident in the eye test that it has the variables. And I'm not, you guys are both obviously quantitative guys, and I am not. I'm a qualitative doctorate guy. But where are the variables with the eye test? I just don't see it. And I don't know who those people are and what expertise they even have to talk about who's playing well and who gets in. So they need to look at that committee to make sure the right people are on there that can deliver some of the stuff that G talked about.
And to put a kind of period on it, from my perspective, is that with the eye test, people are not watching every G5, every P4 game every weekend.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that piece, in your mind when you talk about eye tests.
Yeah, and I'll just make one last comment about Notre Dame. I think they do themselves a disservice with not being affiliated with the conference for football, and that's why they keep ending up in this situation. But one of the things I was surprised about, because I thought their schedule, just from my knowledge of it, was really weak, but strength of schedule was 44th. Not terrible. So, but they probably have 2 big boys in there that play the tougher schedule. Probably the A&M and Miami probably helped that a little bit. So, but yeah, I think Notre Dame should have been in. I do not think my beloved Tide should have been in. So I got to suffer through another game or 2 maybe this year. But
so Notre Dame got jobbed,
huh?
So you saying Notre Dame got jobbed?
I wouldn't say they got jobbed. I mean, I could make an argument for Vanderbilt or Texas maybe, but based on the rankings, like Gerald started this off with, based on the processes and what they said, this is how we're going to do things, and where the rankings were, I don't know how Notre Dame falls from 10 to out.